Hello, everyone. I'm Joey Jones, along with Kennedy, Alicia Acuna, and Joe Concha. And welcome to the big weekend show. And folks, the big story tonight, Joe Biden's bad week. It couldn't be fixed earlier today when his sister's birthday lunch celebration in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, it all began last Sunday when Biden and his team probably had what you would call the Sunday scaries, when they showed a poll that 75% of registered voters are worried about Biden's mental and physical health. Then Biden's problems with his memory began when he confused a current French president for one that passed away nearly 3 decades ago.
Right after I was elected, I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said, you know, why, how long are you back for?
Yeah, he followed that up on Tuesday with more troubles when Biden seemed to forget Hamas is a terrorist group.
There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas.
Good job, press, having his back. And then more woes on Wednesday when he seemed to have a memory lapse when talking about the Chancellor of Germany. He said at a fundraiser, quote, "It's interesting to hear the first meeting I attended as President of the United States. It was in Great Britain. Helmut Kohl said, 'Joe, what do you think if you picked up the phone and picked up the paper tomorrow and learned in the London Times on the front page that 1,000 people stormed the parliament?'" Then the tumultuous Thursday, when Special Counsel Hur released his report on the classified documents investigation and found, quote, "It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness." Biden was reportedly enraged, and according to the Washington Post, he said to his team, quote, "How the F could I forget the day my son died?" Then came the press conference that some say marked the beginning of the end of Biden's re-election opportunity.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet. My memory is fine.
Kennedy, there's a lot of places we can go with this. There was, after the press conference, there were more reactions from White House staff members trying to smooth this over. If you're an American and you're sitting there, take any of those days and moments, but just this past week and then this press conference that he did after the special report, where do you go from there? What do you take from it?
I take that the pyramids of Giza are in Mexico because he said that he had talked to Mexico's president, El-Sisi, and they were going to work on some of that humanitarian aid, which is very benevolent of Mexico. Unfortunately, he was talking about Egypt at the time. And this bad polling was taken before all of these gaffes. And when you lump them together, it paints the worst picture we've had of his mental acuity during his presidency. And this is the one aspect that will never improve. His best days are far behind him. The economy will improve. Hopefully things will improve in Ukraine and in the Middle East, certainly. But in terms of his mental capacity, which is where he's having the most problems, 760% of respondents would say that he is absolutely unfit for the job.
Yeah, I think most of the people I know would say that. I think some people may feel a little bit sorry for him, but we're a country that could go to war. Just feeling sorry for an old man isn't where we need to be. Alicia, this Wall Street Journal article by Thomas and Lucy and Linsky on Friday, I just want to read what they had to say about it because I think it really... I'll show you the headline first. It's "Panic, Fury, and Blame Inside the White House After Reports Target Biden's Age." And then I want to read this quote, and I want you to react from it. At the White House, officials were apoplectic as they raced to contain the fallout from the characterization of Biden's memory. Some Democrats inside and outside of Biden's bubble were privately anxious about what's next for the campaign and his decision to forgo a high-profile interview ahead of Sunday's Super Bowl has also drawn scrutiny. I feel like the Super Bowl interview is the least of his worries at this point.
Yeah, and not doing the Super Bowl the interview actually kind of puts a bow on things for Republicans, if you think about it. But also, additionally, the Wall Street Journal did talk to a former Biden aide who reportedly had expressed frustration with Biden's staff for putting him, quote, in this position where he was talking to the special counsel just 2 days after Israel was attacked, an ally. And the message that they risk sending is only one crisis at a time, folks. Like, two things can't be handled at once. But then if you take a step further, let's just give the president the benefit of the doubt that it had only been 48 hours since Israel was attacked. He had been dealing with the NSA. He was in the Situation Room. He had a lot going on. And so the expectation they're telling us is things are going to get bungled, right? Fine. But this wasn't a one-off. And that's the problem, is that you just went over example after example after example of what the special counsel experienced. So it's a tough sell for his defenders.
You know, Joe, I guess my problem here is that everyone's trying to spin this for Joe Biden. And they're doing it in a way to try to almost point the blame back at the special counsel. If you read this report, the essence of the report is that Joe Biden possessed material that he should not have in 2017, admitted to it on tape, still possessed it in 2022. And what they said is the only reason they could not prosecute him for holding that evidence was that there was an opportunity for Joe Biden to tell a jury that he forgot he had it. And then that would, in a way, exonerate him possibly in front of a jury. Right. The reason why I bring that up, I don't feel like people have really explained that the law broken was in 2017, and the whole precipice of all these words that people are upset about by the special counsel is him explaining what Biden would say to a jury. And so now people are going after this, after these words that the special counsel used to explain his decision. Here's the media doing a fantastic job of explaining it all away.
You're left to wonder why this report spends time making gratuitous and inappropriate criticisms of the president. Former Attorney General Eric Holder said the report, quote, contains way too many gratuitous remarks. The gratuitous comments, they're saying it's gratuitous. We certainly agree that it's gratuitous. The gratuitous comments in the report are troubling and they're inappropriate.
Reality is that report, that part of the report, does not live in reality. It just doesn't.
So the special counsel is lying about the president's memory.
It was gratuitous, it is unacceptable, and it does not live in reality. That is just the facts.
The comments that were made by that prosecutor, gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate.
Yeah, I said here's the media. Obviously, those were White House officials and the vice president. Obviously, the media did the same thing. But, I mean, you can either explain to us what gratuitous means or you can react to that video. Either one's fine with me.
I'll do the media part. So there's a gal over on MSNBC named Rachel Maddow who said because Joe Biden rides a bicycle, therefore that proves that he has the mental fitness to be president. As if because you can operate a Schwinn, therefore you could be the commander-in-chief of our armed forces. I mean, that's the type of arguments that we were hearing here. Think about the details that he was bungling as far as his interview with the special counsel. He couldn't remember when he began as vice president, 2009, and when he exited, 2017. He also couldn't remember not the day that his son died. All right, that's excusable, maybe. He wasn't even within a couple of years in this situation. So we talk about Joe Biden's bad week. This was one that was terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, probably the worst since his, since the Afghan withdrawal. And the fact that he evoked Francois Mitterrand, right? The French president. I get if Mitterrand died maybe a couple months or maybe a year ago. We're talking about he died so long ago that Patrick Mahomes was 1 year old when this happened, 1996. You half expect at this point that he's going to talk about a Zoom call that he had with Charles de Gaulle. You know, so look, this is a turning point because to Kennedy's point, once you have this impression that this man is too old to be president, you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together in the minds of the American people. They don't feel he's up for the job now. And think about this. 5 years from now, he'll just be leaving office if he wins re-election.
Can I explain why this isn't gratuitous very quickly?
Yeah.
this is the basis for not charging him. It was his memory. They were actually painting that as his greatest asset in front of a jury. So it's not gratuitous at all. And prosecutors have to decide, they have to weigh whether or not they could get a conviction. That's why when you're charged with a federal crime, there's like a 97% conviction rate. And it's because of that weighing that they do, trying to figure out what will play in front of a jury. And in their minds, they were actually saying, because he doesn't have grasp of these very critical details, a jury will rule in his favor.
Well, and that's the problem. Lisa, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on this topic that we've just brought around the table. The idea that they're pushing back on this being hateful remarks, judging Joe Biden's character as a person, when in fact that is really the linchpin that kept this out of the legal side. And so is there an element which we're maybe in behind closed doors are actually kind of happy that the prosecutor brought this defense forward and kind of left him off the hook on it?
I think the problem is it's inconvenient, but they're lucky because they actually needed this element of his memory to help get him off. But it also at the same time cuts him off. I mean, there's really no way for this to become a positive, even though he has no charges.
Yeah, you can't be convicted, but you also can't be reelected. You know, it's like the thing that saves you is also the thing that ends your political career. Because we have to be able to rely on someone to make these critical decisions that are happening all at once. You know, to your point, you can't just deal with one thing and then be squirreled away into the basement and hope nothing else pops up. It's whack-a-mole. That's what the presidency is.
I think we're probably going to have someone else run for the Democratic nomination at this point. I really feel that way. I've not felt that way until this week, and I think that's what we see now. And we'll talk more about it here in a little bit.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.